you damn well better be a leader if we're talking about the quarterback position. Okay, so I want to just start off by saying congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles for winning Super Bowl 59, 2025. That was an absolute dominant win. We all went into the game knowing that they had the more dominant team than Kansas City Chiefs everywhere, from linebacker, defensive line, secondary, receiver group, offensive line, running back. The only thing people were saying is Kansas City has the better quarterback and head coach duo. I absolutely agree with that 100%. That being said, a lot of people have been saying all kind of things about Jalen Hurts. Pretty much been one of the most scrutinized or polarized quarterbacks all year long. Reality, he's been a starter for 4 years and he's been to the playoffs every single year. 3 of those years, he's had 11 plus wins. 2 of those years, he went to the Super Bowl. 1 of those years, won the Super Bowl and the Super Bowl MVP. Where does that put Jalen Hurts? And I honestly don't want to get into he's top 5, he's top 10, but more importantly, I think a bigger thing to discuss is we have to change our perspective. And I say we as in media, as in scouts, as in agents, as in fans. We have to change our perspective on how we look at and evaluate quarterbacks, also football players and athletes in general. Because one thing Jalen Hurts has that a lot of people don't take into a consideration is he's a great leader and he's clutch. Those 2 things, especially as a quarterback, are so important. You may not have to be necessarily a leader as a defensive end or receiver or running back, but you damn well better be a leader if we're talking about the quarterback position. And it just shows how much more valuable it is for a player to be a leader. And you can tell that Philadelphia Eagles take kind of the personality of Jalen Hurts as well, and then being clutch. And a lot of people think being clutch is like 2 minutes left, ball in your hands, down 3, what you're going to do. That is clutch, but there's also a sense of at the biggest moments, the biggest games, you show up. And that's one thing that you can say about Jalen Hurts that you might not be able to say about other quarterbacks. Do they raise their level in the games that they need to? Sometimes Jalen Hurts doesn't do everything that people want them to do, but we have to start to reevaluate how we look at players. It can't just be on stats. It can't just be on how many passing yards, how many touchdowns did you throw. I think thing is like, do you show up in the biggest games, in the biggest moments? And that says a lot about who you are and as a player and as an athlete. And that's so undervalued, right? And that goes for everybody on the field, not just the quarterback. Philadelphia Eagles this past Sunday, every position, it felt like their whole team, they played their best game all the year. Is it a coincidence? Is that it was the biggest game of the year that they played the best game that they've ever played collectively in this season? No, I don't think it is. So I think there's something to be said about that. And this is one thing that a lot of people haven't brought up. I haven't heard one person bring this up yet. And Jalen Hurts has a $200+ million contract. I believe he makes over $50+ million a year. Everyone wants to know, well, when you pay your quarterback, are you still going to have enough to build around your team? Hurts is one of the few quarterbacks that have been able to win a Super Bowl when they're not on a rookie deal. That's the one thing that everybody says is Dak Prescott, Brock Purdy, Cousins. At one point, are you paying them too much where you can't get the value enough of your team? And it's proven now that even though Jalen makes $50+ million a year, you can pay him and still win. And that says a lot about Jalen Hurts, but I think that even says more about Howie Roseman, the way he's able to draft and manipulate the salary cap to be able to pay Jalen Hurts over $50 million a year and still be able to put a hell of a roster together. That's something that people haven't been talking about, is they talk about how stacked this roster was. Like San Francisco last year had a pretty good roster. I don't think they had the roster that the Eagles had this year. Everyone was like, oh, well, Brock Purdy is making basically nothing, so they're able to stack every position around them. How in the hell is Howie Roseman able to pay all that money to their quarterback but still be able to have enough money to put a stacked roster around them and still have salary cap? They still have room to continue to build this team. It's actually a masterpiece by Howie Roseman. And I just wanted to say, I do think he's the best GM in the NFL. I do think this means one thing. You also have to take the draft serious. Obviously, everyone knows that you got to develop through to draft. And that's the thing that I've seen with Philadelphia. And the reason they're able to pay Jalen Hurts and give him a $200+ million contract and still make enough money to go out and sign Saquon Barkley. You got to win the draft. Another thing is there's been players that have been undervalued. Someone like Zach Bond, nearly the defensive player of the year. And he was a special teams player, a backup. And to come into Philadelphia and legit be the best inside linebacker in the 2024-2025 season, that says a lot. Being able to evaluate players and see things in players that maybe other organizations, other GMs don't see. So I think that's a thing too that allows you to build this stacked roster. Don't get me wrong, I don't think Howie Roseman knew that Zach Bond would be this. Sometimes you have a little bit of preparation and you evaluate and you find good athletes and you find good players and you hire the right coaches. Vic Fangio, and he sees his attributes, and then all of a sudden you put that player in the right spot to make plays, and then this happens. Drafting is important. Being able to develop players on rookie deals so you can still pay your quarterback a lot of money and still win at a high level, as well as Howie Roseman has been doing in terms of putting the pieces together, the players in the building. You also got to give him respect for hiring Nick Sirianni. He has been absolutely disrespected as a coach. I get why people look at him the way they look at him, but the facts are the facts. He's a winner, and I think in his first 4 years as a coach, I want to say he's only behind like Andy in terms of wins in that time frame. So you have to put respect on his name to win the Super Bowl and obviously go to another Super Bowl. So 2 Super Bowls in 4 years, you're a winner. And he's hired great coaches. Now his third coaching hire that is going on to become a head coach. You got to give this man credit, and you got to give Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie credit for hiring Nick Sirianni. He just fits Philadelphia. Jeffrey Lurie said an interesting thing after the Super Bowl the other day about Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni. The media asked him one question about, how do you feel about Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts and kind of the backlash that they've had all year throughout the media. And he says that, and I'm paraphrasing, we look for different things when it comes to who we bring in to the facility, whether it's a coach or a player. He goes, we don't necessarily look at what a lot of other different organizations look at within the NFL. We look basically how to use a player, a coach, to put them in a position to win. To me, this made me understand a little bit about their mindset when it comes to building these teams. It says a lot about the Philadelphia Eagles. Jeffrey Lurie, Howie Roseman, they seem to run their organization in a way that's very different than everyone else, but it's a well-oiled machine. How they go about drafting players, bringing in coaches. I don't think that they just go off of resume and stats, and they're looking for culture fit. Strictly, how does this help us win? And I know that sounds like, yes, every team is looking for players to help them win. But I do think there's a lot of organizations out there who are just looking at, well, this player's productive. We have a need in this position. And I just think that how Jeffrey Lurie looks at hiring and drafting is just different. That leads me to this last point. The Philadelphia Eagles are built to continue to win. There's not many teams that have the executive team that they have and then the roster that they have. You have an elite owner in Jeffrey Lurie. You have the best GM in the NFL, I believe. You have, in my opinion, a top 5, top 6 quarterback in Jalen Hurts. You have the best running back. You have Nick Sirianni, who I think is an underrated head coach and just fits Philadelphia and is focused and gritty. You have a young defense that is elite. You have a great receiving core and A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith that's locked up in contracts. You have a great offensive line. They're stacked. They have the opportunity, depending on how the draft goes and how free agency goes, to continue being elite over the next few years and possibly bring on more championships. All right, so that wraps up everything I had to say. Let me know what you guys think about all of this.